Welcome back, everyone. Our next presenter is Nutriband Inc. It trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol NTRB. It also has warrants that trade on the NASDAQ under the symbol NTRBW and is primarily engaged in the development of a portfolio of transdermal pharmaceutical products. Their lead product under development is an abuse deterrent phenanyl patch incorporating our Aversa abuse deterrence technology. Joining us today is our CEO, Gareth Sheridan. Welcome, Gareth.
Hey, Anna. Thanks for having me on.
All right. We're excited to hear a little bit about your company. Tell us about it. Where did it start and where are you now?
Yeah, so Nutriband is a pharmaceutical company with a specific focus on transdermal technologies. Transdermal, for anybody unfamiliar, it just means delivery through the skin. We've spotted a underdeveloped need, in our opinion, for transdermal technology to be a part of the mainstream delivery profile for many drugs. So our goal really is to look at existing drugs and apply transdermal technologies where possible to improve on patient outcomes, drug efficacy, and patient comfort as well, if you think of needles, for example. We originally started the company in 2012 in Dublin, Ireland. It was my thesis in university to start off with. And again, we were looking at how transdermal technologies could come into the forefront of the medical space and not just be associated with, nicotine patches, for example. Right. So we spent a couple of years from 2012 to 2016 in Ireland doing some market research. We had developed some, OTC type products, sports wearables, things like that people could, get certain vitamins and so on. And just to gauge the interaction with the consumer on if they would trust transdermal technologies for other applications. And the feedback was very good, so much so that we moved the company to the States in 2016 and began to build out our strategy to move into the pharmaceutical space. In 2016, we then listed on the OTC initially, which was a strategic move for us to build into the space and build up the portfolio of technologies we liked without having to raise expensive money. So we listed on the OTC and used stock as an acquisition currency rather than raising capital at the time, which has been a mentality for us to avoid raising money where possible, that we still have today. So as of last October, we're now listed on the NASDAQ. We've completed a number of acquisitions. We own our own clinical research facilities. We own our own manufacturing subsidiary, and we have a very exciting pipeline that we're working on developing in-house as well.
Well, congratulations on this venture. Tell us a little bit about Aversa Technology and how you guys are tackling the growing opioid crisis.
So a key point of what we're trying to do with transdermal is to improve the safety profile of existing drugs. We're very focused on the opiate space. I think if COVID hadn't been at the forefront of the media attention over the last couple of years, I think it certainly would have been opiates. And I think it's only a matter of time before they're back at the forefront again. For the first time in history in the United States, over a 12-month period, there's been over 100,000 overdoses, unfortunately, in the country. 75% of those are opiate related. So we think there's a huge opportunity to be a disruptor in that space and improve the safety profile of opiate-based transdermal products. So Aversa is a very simple but very effective technology that we've developed through our subsidiary 4P Therapeutics. It uses aversive agents to deter abuse for fentanyl patches, buprenorphine patches, and so on. I have a slide just to give you an example, and I will show you how these patches tend to be abused. So if you can imagine a fentanyl patch, for example, it's an extremely effective pain medication when used correctly. The problem is there can be up to 70% residual fentanyl left in the patch after use. And in the wrong hands, people can use it to get high. There can be accidental misuse, overdose. There's even been a number of cases over the last couple of years where, unfortunately, a small child has picked one out of the garbage that hasn't been disposed of correctly, and it's resulted in a number of deaths as well. But the key way that these tend to be abused is you will have an addict will get their hands on a fentanyl patch and they will chew the patch like a chewing tobacco, for example, swallow the patch. People will roll the patch and smoke it, boil it to make a tea, whatever they can do to extract the residual opiate out of the patch and use it for illicit means. So what Aversa does is very simple. There's a side-by-side comparison here. a typical fentanyl patch is a 3-layer patch. You have your release liner, you have your drug matrix in the center, and then you have your backing layer. And what we've done with Aversa is just make the release liner permeable and then add an additional backing layer again to the back of the patch, which contains the most bitter substance on the planet, denatonium benzoate, and capsaicin or red pepper extract. Two extremely effective ingredients to deter abuse, if you can imagine the roots of abuse that we touched on, and they're also non-toxic and non-harmful to the body. So if somebody tries to make a tea out of a fentanyl patch, they will release the two backing ingredients and mix with the fentanyl. If somebody's to try and chew it, they would have to chew a combination of those two ingredients. If somebody was to try and smoke it, snort it, what you name it, they would have to work their way through a combination of red pepper extract and denatonium at the same time. It's extremely, extremely unpleasant, if not unbearable, but also completely non-harmful to the body. So that's our approach to deter abuse for these products. And then we will work our way down the opiate family with methylphenidate, buprenorphine, two products which we've already added to the pipeline, and further beyond that again. So that's how Aversa works. We have Aversa patented in 43 countries at the moment, including the United States. It's a very strong, very broad patent. I think for a competitor to develop something similar, it would not be very simple, considering we've taken a relatively easy, simple approach to deterring abuse, and we protected it very well. So a competitor would have to get maybe overly complicated to compete with us on something like this.
Yeah, can you explain that a little bit more? Are there competitors out there, and what makes you stand out?
I think we're in a space at the moment where it hasn't been a huge focus for many larger companies. Fentanyl patch sales have been declining because they don't want to put the resources into making it effective and safe for patients. They'd rather just put resources elsewhere. We're at a structure of a company now with our current, market cap, our current outstanding shares, a opportunity that we have in front of us to revolutionize, maybe capture the entire opiate-based transdermal market would be extremely effective for us. We did our go-to-market strategy with a company called Health Advances. They give you basically a forecast of what you can expect with a drug like this. They speak with industry leaders, insurance companies, physicians to get a feedback on the technology. Our results were extremely positive. We think we could charge a 20% premium to an existing fentanyl patch on the market now. And at the same time, they forecast that Aversa fentanyl would be anywhere from $85 to $200 million annually once we get it to market. So considering that a typical margin on a product like this can be around 50%, we're in a very strong position where right now our market cap is a third of what our potential profits could be in 2-3 years' time.
Talk a little bit more about your path to market with Aversa. What's next?
Aversa, so we've partnered with Kindeva Drug Delivery on a feasibility study to evaluate using their FDA-approved patch with our Aversa technology. So luckily for us, we've partnered with probably the leading company in the world when it comes to the manufacturing of these products. Kindeva Drug Delivery, or formerly known as 3M Drug Delivery. If you had asked us a year ago or a couple of months before NASDAQ who our ideal partner or feasibility partner would have been, it certainly would have been Kindeva. So we're very, very happy that they share the same confidence in the technology that we do. And by partnering on a feasibility study for this product, we're in a position now where we're using an FDA-approved patch. It's significantly cut down the cost and time associated with a typical FDA trial. All we're doing is a 505(b)(2) pathway. We're adjusting the external components of their patch without affecting the drug matrix itself. So the FDA route and pathway is relatively short and inexpensive.
Fascinating stuff. Talk a little bit about the structure of your company, plus your subsidiaries.
So when we moved the company in 2016 to the United States, a big focus for us and a mentality for us, which we maintain today, was to be very cautious and careful with money that we raise. We would rather earn our money than raise our money. So an important aspect of what we're working on was to build out subsidiaries that were revenue generating. We acquired 4P Therapeutics, which is our clinical research facility in Atlanta, Georgia. We acquired them in 2018. We do a number of contract clinical trials for major and small companies, one NASDAQ listed company, and we're building out a presence in the market there for third-party clinical work. And then more recently, our acquisition of Pocono Pharmaceutical, which is a manufacturing facility in just outside Charlotte in North Carolina. So we do contract manufacturing services for coded products, sports tapes, OTC products. We're working on increasing our capabilities there. We recently added transdermal and topical lotions to the manufacturing mix, which we plan to launch later this year. So between those two subsidiaries, we've grown revenues from 2019, $400,000. 2020 was just under $1 million. Last year was up again about 50%, $1.4 million. This coming year, we're thinking we will have a similar growth rate, if not higher than that again, based on the resources that we're putting into that. So there is a scenario where we may not need to raise money again because of the continual growth we're seeing in our subsidiaries. So it's important to us, again, that we earn our money and not raise our money, so we keep the best value possible for our current shareholders.
Wonderful. Tell us how your company's financed, and do you need to raise some capital?
So we completed our NASDAQ listing in October of last year. We're still relatively new to the NASDAQ scene. We raised enough money that we felt would hit significant milestones for us. Right now, we don't have any active conversations or discussions about raising capital again. We're very focused on launching our own products to market and increasing our resources at our subsidiaries to improve the revenue streams there, and tightening certain aspects of the manufacturing processes so we can improve profitability as well. So at this time, there is no active discussion to raise capital again, and we don't have anything in the pipeline to have a discussion on that either. So at this time, no, we're well financed to achieve significant milestones with Aversa, and hopefully continue on from there with our own revenue generating subsidiaries.
Yeah, let's talk about those milestones. Where do you see the company in the next 12 to 24 months?
So we're working through the feasibility study now with Kindeva. We're thinking that it's not unrealistic, and we've set a target for somewhere towards the end of 2024 for an FDA submission on Aversa Fentanyl. We would have a 6-month expedited review with the FDA based on discussions that we've had there. So 12 to 24 months, we're thinking it's not, at the 24-month side of things, it's not unrealistic to think we're ramping up, preparing for the launch of Aversa Fentanyl, considering everything would go well with the FDA. That's a huge focus for us. We have the entire team focused on Aversa Fentanyl because of the return on that opportunity is going to be significant given the relatively inexpensive capital requirement and also the short timeline. We then will plan to use the proceeds from sales of Aversa Fentanyl to build out our other opiate-based products like methylphenidate, buprenorphine, and then beyond that again into other transdermal technologies. So we have a short 24-month timeline, I think, to see significant revenues, but during that 24 months, we're also going to be growing rather rapidly with our subsidiaries as well.
Wow, wonderful. What's the key value proposition of the company today?
I think if you look at our company structure, our cap table, everything that we've done is quite evident that we've been very careful and very steady in terms of what we've done to achieve our NASDAQ listing. We were slow to get to the mark because we didn't raise unnecessary capital. We avoided toxic debt. Where possible, we didn't take in any loans. We're pretty clean from a financial aspect as it is right now. Our current outstanding shares are relatively low. Our float is relatively low. So the real value right now is that we are a short, 18 to 24 months from an FDA submission on a single product that could give us profits, not even revenues, profits of about 3 times our current market cap. And that does not take into consideration revenues from our subsidiaries or revenues from other products that we begin to work on right after that.
Wow. Now, you did say delivery to the skin. Is it evasive? What approvals do you need? It is FDA approved.
So Kindeva's current fentanyl patch is FDA approved. The nice thing about what we're doing and changing there is very simple. We're just changing external layers. So we don't change the delivery profile of this drug. It would have the same bioavailability. It would have the same delivery profile as their current FDA approved drug. So we're just changing the manufacturing process. So again, it would go through an FDA approval from a 505(b)(2) perspective. but it would be a relatively straightforward trial. We can almost tell you now what a lot of the results are going to be, although we would have to go through the process. The one differentiating factor for us is we do something called a human abuse liability study. And that basically compares our patch with our Aversa technology to a fentanyl patch with no aversive technology. And we monitor which one is more easily broken into. You know, nothing's 100%, but 99% of the time it's not going to be ours, considering it's a free-for-all on the current fentanyl patch. With those results, we can then claim abuse deterrence on the label, market the product as a branded drug, and we can have a 20% premium to current market prices.
So who are the majors in this space, and would they benefit the most from your technology? With which ones? Are you open to a buyout?
I mean, everything is on the table for us. We tend to not turn down discussions, partnership opportunities, licensing opportunities should that come. For us, we're very focused on taking this drug to market in the United States because we want to see it to market, not only from a financial aspect, but we feel it's the right thing. It's a due to the people that are actually need the drug. The problem is not just that these drugs tend to be abused by addicts, but the problem is the result of that has meant that people that require it for pain treatment have had their access cut. You can follow a number of forums where people are talking about suicide, people are talking about unbearable pain that they can't get treatment for, pain that ibuprofen or, Tylenol is not necessarily going to help. So it's a two-factor approach for us, that we're reducing the abuse risk, but we're also making these drugs accessible again. And a huge part of our company goal is to see that through. So we'd have to be very comfortable that happens if those discussions were to ever come about.
So given you have an alternative to abusing opioids, let's talk about the crisis that we have here, especially at our border, right? Do you have any plans of action to go down there? And how is the government assisting and supporting this? Any grants available to you guys?
Yeah, there is. We're exploring different non-dilutive financing options. That plays a role as well in the opportunity to not have to raise capital again. I think we're right on trend again when it comes to where the media focus is going to be for a health perspective. I think COVID, as it continues to rescind into the background, opiates will start to come forward again as public enemy number one. So we want to make sure we're right there and part of that discussion, and make sure that the company, the country, the government, everybody knows that we're doing our part to make this a better situation again. On top of that, again, buprenorphine, which is a follow-on product for us to fentanyl, it can be used to treat moderate pain to severe pain also. It's a lesser strength fentanyl product, but at the same time, it can also be explored and used as an alternative to methadone. So when it comes to clinics, rather than having a methadone clinic methadone is handed out to certain abusers or people trying to wind off opiate addiction, a patch will be a lot easier to monitor and help that situation, because you obviously run into certain scenarios where methadone can then be split, sold after it's given out, and just actually puts the whole opiate crisis into further turmoil, because you'll have people claim opiate addiction, get their methadone, and then sell it on the market.
Terry Breacher is an attendee, and he's asking, can you tell us a little bit about the $230,000 order in May?
Yeah, so again, coming back to our real focus on earning our revenues and our capital, we've been seeing significant growth in our manufacturing contracts at Pocono. Our last quarter was very strong. It sets the tone for what the year is going to be at a very minimum. And then for May, the first 3 weeks of May, we received $230,000 in orders as well from a number of different customers. So that won't even be the entirety of May. That was at that particular point. So we can expect similar orders and similar revenue streams month to month going forward, and increasing on top of that again, which has been a big focus for us.
So how do you scale laterally further than you already are? Do you need more salespeople, more medical networks? What do you need?
Right now, when we acquired Pocono, their capacity was quite minimum. At Pocono, in terms of capacity and what we can actually achieve, we haven't touched probably half of it at the moment. So we're working to get our machine running consistently. We have the capabilities of running up to 1 million coded products a day at Pocono. That's certainly a target for us. if the time comes, we have the space and opportunity to then expand out with additional equipment. So we see Pocono as a huge resource for us to be able to continue to build on revenue streams and be a very, profitable and successful company moving towards the Aversa goal. So in terms of capabilities and capacity, we're not concerned. We don't have any risk there.
So you have about a 30 million market cap and 12 million in equity. Many biotechs, they're trading at less than cash in the bank. So discuss your capital structure for us.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to the fact again that we were very careful to structure this correctly. You can look over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the market has been very unpredictable and unkind to a lot of people. We have not followed a similar trend in terms of where certain companies are down today, especially in a similar space to us. I think that's a real show of confidence from our current shareholders who may be unwilling or unwanting to sell at these sort of levels because they can see what's coming down in the near term. So our cap structure is quite good for us in terms of maintaining this value and moving up from here. We have 2.2 million shares in DTC at the moment, so it's a relatively low float company considering we're about 7.8 million shares total. We're not expecting that sort of structure to change, definitely not in the near term. So we've given ourselves a nice cushion and a nice, defense basically against the current market situation. And we feel if we execute on what we're saying we will, which we have always done to date, we can most likely only go up from here in terms of value.
A viewer, Gerald Weigel, says, it's my thought that most doctors will not issue the regular patch if Nutriband has obtained FDA approval. This would mean Nutriband could control the entire doctor-recommended fentanyl patch. Do you agree?
That's definitely a scenario. So that was part of our study with Health Advances, where we would mimic what was done with OxyContin, where Oxy was obviously had a huge problem with abuse and misuse when it first came out. The solution was to make an Oxy tablet very hard, so it would crack and fracture. It would be difficult to get to the consistency to snort it, for example. And then the FDA made abuse deterrence a requirement. We think there's definitely an opportunity for us to lobby and convince the FDA and say, look, if we have a safe version of this product on the market that's deterring abuse by 90% upwards, and our competitors is a free-for-all and they're contributing to the opiate crisis, then why wouldn't they make it a requirement? At that point, we would have a 2-year head start and a very strong patent ahead of any of our competitors who would want to compete. And Health Advances had given us a number in the region of $800 million annually in terms of revenue should that happen, with fentanyl alone.
So about how many countries are you currently in? How far is your reach right now?
So we have a patent in 43 countries for our Aversa technology. We're very focused on the US market. The US makes up about half of the entire market opportunity globally. Internationally, we are open to the idea of licensing and partnering the products without doing the heavy lifting. So we would receive revenues from a third party who would go through the relative regulatory profile in that country. And that's something we're working on now that the patent has started to be granted in recent months. But we're very focused on the US market. We think the crisis here is enough for us to keep us busy at the moment. But again, we're also working on a feasibility agreement with Kindeva, who can make the right introductions then internationally, hopefully as well.
Gareth, talk a little bit about supply chain, labor shortage, and the government cap on drug prices. How are these going to affect you?
Nothing is really affecting us at the moment. Supply chain, we've had some minor, additional timeframes on ordering when it comes to the COVID effect. But luckily for us, we foresaw that. We make sure that we keep enough inventory on hand. It's just a matter for us of ordering certain materials earlier now. We did not see any downturn during the COVID crisis in terms of our revenues. We actually went up a little over $1 million during the COVID pandemic in terms of revenue. So, I know a lot of companies have been unfortunate to be affected very heavily by that, but we have really not been. We prepared very well for it and made sure that we could keep business as usual. So none of those are really a factor for us going forward.
So besides opioids and pain relief, what other applications could this technology be used for? How is this product going to evolve?
So Aversa can essentially, in our mind, be applied to any current patch on the market today. And that may not be just restricted to opiates or abusable products. That could be applied to any patch that you would want an abuse deterrent technology to reduce an infant or a child swallowing a patch accidentally, for example. So the applications are kind of endless in the topical transdermal space. But we are, as a company, working on additional technologies and opportunities as well. For example, FSH for infertility and exenatide for diabetes. These are two products that we're exploring in a preclinical phase at the moment as well, where we would hopefully be able to compete with an injectable in these two categories. So transdermal technology has made significant technological improvements over the last 10 years, probably more in the last 10 years than in its previous lifespan. So we're in a position now where drugs that were never considered as transdermal are starting to be looked at a little bit more serious. And I think we're right on trend to follow up in that space.
You know, it seems like some of these biotech ETFs like XBI or LABU would benefit to have you in their portfolio. Have you thought of that? What would it take on your part? Are you in any now?
I mean, I definitely think it would make a lot of sense. I think we have a little bit of a road to go to show where we're going with Aversa and the technology. But I definitely think it's not unrealistic to think we're there in the near term. I think it would make sense, and I think we're definitely going to be, in terms of a media focus on us, we're going to be the right sort of addition, and especially with the opportunity from a financial aspect as well, given where our current stock price is and our current market cap. I mean, you can look at anybody in the company now. Nobody's ever sold a single share. We're all feeling very undervalued. And I know every CEO is going to say the same thing. But I think we have a lot to back it and prove it as well. So I don't think it's unrealistic to think something like that soon enough.
Last question for you, Gareth. What's the next major milestone shareholders should look out for?
I think keep an eye on our quarterly filings this year. We're pretty excited about the numbers that will be coming out. If you take out the spend on Aversa, which is going to be consistent over the next couple of years, we're performing pretty well and performing better every time we put out a filing. So I think keep an eye on our quarterly filings, and then the next major milestones will be to move out of a feasibility agreement with Aversa and into a commercialization agreement, which we hope is not too far down the line also. And that's a pretty distinctive declaration that we are taking this product to an FDA submission. And one way or another, we would hope to get this to market and be a real disruptor in the space.
Wonderful. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
I think we've touched on it. I think that's a good overview of Aversa. Again, coming to the value proposition, I guess I just like to come back to the point that, in 24 months' time, our profits are expected to be significantly higher than our current market cap. So I think it's at an interesting stage for the company for anybody looking to potentially invest.
It certainly is. Thank you so much. This was a really great presentation. You have a fan out there as well. Stephanie Manka says, excellent presentation. Thank you and good luck. So we also appreciate your time. Please join us again in the future with some updates.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anna.
All right. Okay, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.